So, welcome to another Tezlom podcast. This one's with Amrit, the owner and CEO of Walfinch, Domiciliary franchise. This podcast, I don't think I've laughed that much in a podcast. It's a good one, this. I laugh a lot in it, but we cover some pretty brutal topics about running a business. Leadership is one of them, and dismantling your ego. We talk about social media quite deeply as well, and I think it's a really good podcast for anyone to listen to in any business, but especially in franchising. I hope you get as much as I did. I definitely took some self-belief. Again, we covered that, and I think it was some stuff that really made me feel good about my core. But thanks for listening. So we're here again. It's the Tezlom podcast. Kind of tell you how I wanted this guest on the podcast. Kind of came out from nowhere from me. I feel like he'll probably might agree, might disagree with me. I feel like he hit social media hard. All of a sudden came out of nowhere, and I can love his consistency of trying. And it's just nice to see the journey of like where he started to where they are now with fully edited, full on mega videos to him like kind of doing selfies on the car park to where he is now. So if you wouldn't mind, please introducing yourself, mate.
Well, thank you. I'm Amrit. I'm the CEO and founder of Walfinch. Walfinch is a home care operation. And Amrit Dhaliwal.
Mate, thank you so much. Mate, I feel like me and you've got a nice relationship, haven't we?
Yeah.
And I think it stemmed from social media, didn't it?
Yeah.
And I love that about social media. I'll come back to that, but I know you've got an interesting story about how you got into franchising. Could you just tell people, for people who don't know you, how you got into franchising?
There's quite a lot there, really. I mean, how far back do you want me to?
I feel like sometimes you have to go back to the very beginning, the first skin. So if you could start there and peel the onion right back, that'd be cool.
No, cool. So I've always wanted to run my own business. You know, I grew up in a sort of business sort of family. Parents are immigrants, came over from India.
Did they have their own businesses?
So when they came over, they were working in factories and back to back, right? I'm one of 4 kids, and so it was literally one person's at home with the kids, the other person's doing a night shift, and then switching over, and so they were passing ships. And as I sort of came onto the scene, because I'm the youngest, they started getting into markets, shops, all of that kind of thing, and then basically ran kind of retail businesses over the years. I mean, I remember when I was a child, I was like going out Saturday mornings, 4 a.m., rocking up to Blackbush Market, Reading, all these sort of places with my dad, and like piping up, selling jeans and all this kind of thing. Great fun. But when I was growing up, I was thinking, I want to run my own business, right? I want this more nuanced and whatever. And so all my mates are there like saying, we want to be a doctor or an accountant or this and that. Sounds a bit shit to me.
Can I ask that? Do you think it's a culture thing, an Indian thing for people to go into that sort of profession, isn't it? I've got some really close Indian friends, and they all say the same thing. It's kind of almost a given that you have to be that sort of profession.
Totally. Well, you think, your parents have come over, they're here on a mission. Yeah. They're not messing about. They're here not for a holiday. They're here to work their guts out and then to say, right, here's a better life. Yeah. And so all of the priming is around becoming a professional. Yeah. And so for me, I was just thinking, it just doesn't fit.
You prefer the market stalls?
I'm all there. I'm all hustle.
Isn't it cool though, mate? Isn't it cool, like how inspiring your dad and your mum were at that point? And they probably didn't know. They just wanted to put food on the table.
Didn't know,
but they were just.
They still don't know.
Yeah. It's cool, isn't it?
It's very cool. And then so I went to university, did all that kind of stuff because ticking the box. And,
did you do uni?
Yeah, I did it.
What did you do at uni?
Economics and history.
But
it was.
I didn't realise it. I didn't realise you were such a geek. Well, there you go.
Out of the 12 hours of university a week, I probably made it to 4. But anything past 2 o'clock I can get to, right? But no, I had good fun. You grow up a lot. It was the first time I lived away from home and all that. But it was worrying for me because I was thinking, I don't want to work for someone. What am I going to do? And so I'm there trying to figure out lots of different things at uni. My second year of uni, I went out to Budapest because I thought, they've got a good property market. I'm going to start flipping properties out in Budapest. I can get some funding together. Went out there, started like viewing things and whatever. Fortunately, as soon as I got back, the property market crashed out there, and so I didn't do any of that. And then hit the end of uni, I was like, right, okay, I'm screwed. I've got to get a job, and worked as a headhunter for a bit, and
for a recruitment agency.
No, IT testing, in town at one of the project partners. It was good fun. It was like load of banter.
Did you? So let's just capture some of these moments because it's easy to flip past stuff. Mum and Dad lived in where? London?
Yeah, so I grew up in Hounslow and Southall, which is like proper Indian immigrant community. You know, like literally it's one of the only places in the country where you go to Southall train station and the sign's written in Punjabi. That's how immigrant it was.
And did your brothers and sisters come over with you at the same time? The whole family came over?
No. So we were all born here. My parents came over in like the 60s, 70s, and then we were all born here. Basically.
So are they all professionals?
One of my sisters is an optom, so like very professional. The other one sort of does like HR type stuff, and my eldest sister actually works with me and actually is an MD of one of the Walfinch branches, so which is super cool. So she was actually in sort of like dental technology and all this kind of thing. It was like, this is a bit boring, and she wanted a bit of a stopgap. Like 10 years ago, I was like, why don't you just do like a couple of days with us? I need some help with something, some recruitment. All of a sudden, she's doing an RM course and whatever. And now she's like running a whole show there, and it's like it's super cool. So and our work ethic is very similar, mine and hers. So we can work together, and it's all right. So, but yeah, so it was super cool. I mean, so just getting back to your actual question there, it was interesting because for me the driver was always I don't want a real job. So I left uni, worked as a IT recruitment guy for like 8 months, and it was this one day, and I remember that one day where I was like, this is it, I'm done, thank you. And I was super sick. I was literally just hurling up all over the place. It was horrendous, and but as I said, I was growing up in a proper sort of immigrant background where like you haven't been hit by a bus, you turn up, you're letting someone else down, you rock up, end of story. And so I sort of like pull myself together, get to work, and just slap a smile on it, bang the phones, all that kind of stuff. Every 30 minutes I'm running down to the loo and just letting it all out, coming back in, and my boss says to me, Amrit, what's your problem today? I was like, and he just like has a little pop at me, and it was nothing, but it just got me thinking, like, what the hell am I doing here? And I basically was able to get some funding together, and I was like, okay, I'm 21 years old, I know nothing. What do I do, right? And I thought, well, I've got a bit of this. I've seen the Goodfellas. I could probably open a bar, right? Maybe a restaurant. And there was this going concern. It was this Italian deli in Richmond, in London. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to get involved in this. Next thing I know, I've got this place.
No way.
I'm like 22 years old. I walk in. I was thinking, I know jack about this. And I remember it was like September. It was actually still quite sunny, and it was like simple things like there's like an umbrella thing outside. I was like, the guy just gave me the keys and left. I was like, how do you roll that back up? I was like looking at this coffee machine thinking, that looks a bit scary as well, right? But it was super interesting. Like, you're 20, I was 22 at this point.
I think that's super admiring. That fucking 22 years old. How did you get the money together just through funding?
It was literally just through like, borrowed some off friends or family and whatever, and it was like trying to figure out, okay, well, I just need to do this much to pay it all back, and it will take me like 6 years to pay it all back, and worst case scenario, if it all goes tits up, I'll go and get a job and just pay the loans back and done, right? And so I was never, I was always okay with a risk appetite. I thought, well, I'm young enough to just make it all back, And that was quite fun actually. I got in, and you learn really quickly that as a leader everything is different for you. Like it people speak to you differently. The information and the way you get that delivered is very different. You know, there was a guy that used to work for me who was like almost 3 times my age at that point. And I'm like, okay, I've got this strange issue here because I'm, from a cultural point of view, I'm like, got to be very nice to you, but actually you're doing this and this incorrectly, and and so we have this really weird sort of tussle. And at the end of my journey with that bit, he was actually one of my biggest advisors, because we kind of figured out that we were on the same page, but we just needed to speak to each other differently. He was wound up that there was a 22-year-old kid that had never been to Italy, and he, sort of telling him how to run this Italian restaurant, and he's like this old Italian, cool dude. And I was wound up thinking, my God, I own this place, for goodness sakes, give me some respect, and just listen to the way I want to do it and whatever. And it was just like, it was a lot.
Mate, that would have been a massive learning curve.
Oh my God,
tears and fucking sat in the car and
totally.
Those are the bits, aren't they, that people don't talk about. 100% sat on your own going, what the fuck have I just done?
Totally.
How am I going to win this?
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is, mate, and I have been in a very similar situation, is thinking, I could be wrong here, and I need to listen.
Yeah.
And our win is, you don't think it at the time, you think, I need to shut up and listen here. It's not what I thought it was going to be, and I need to shut up and listen to this situation and win his respect by just listening to him, and he's actually probably right.
And that's it, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it takes you years to learn that. It's so simple, but it takes so long and so many different experiences to get to that.
Yeah.
But it was quite funny, really. I mean, I was there and I was thinking, right, once I kind of got a bit of a handle on it, I was thinking, okay, it's not enough. I've got more to give. Like, what am I doing? And I did this weekend in Bath, like Bath Spa and all that kind of thing. And I was there, and I went to this Pump Rooms, it's called. This really very beautiful looking tea room. And I'm looking there, and I'm thinking, I'm paying £25 for scones and cream and jam. I could do that. I know how much scones cost to make. And so I walk around Richmond, and there's this old fashion boutique, and it's just closed down. And I was like, right, call up the landlord. And I was like, listen, can we sort of work something out here? Have you got someone going in? It was just like tiny room, probably not much bigger than this this room here. And he was like, oh, all right, you've got another premises around the corner. Fine, let's work something out. Get in, I kit this place out. Got this designer in to make it to a Marie Antoinette tea room, and it was up and running really quickly. Got all these sort of 16-year-olds to work there and just train them up as much as I could, and it was great fun actually. And it was heaving. It was only 18 covers, but it was just, on a Saturday we do 120 people or something. It was bonkers. And within about 10 months I had got a business award, sold it, and then reinvested that into the deli, made that into more of a fine dining Italian restaurant. And then at this point I'm just working my ass off. I'm
I never knew this about you. You're an animal. I love that. I fucking love that about you, mate. Hospitality as well, though, has got to be the toughest sector in the world.
Brutal.
Toughest sector in the world, isn't it?
It's brutal because also you've got these dead times, but you have to be around.
Yeah.
And when it's a little place and a local place, people come in to see you.
Yeah.
So, they'll be walking past and be like, oh, Amrit's not here. Okay, well, we'll come back tomorrow, because they want the banter and all of that kind of thing. And I'm like, God, so I'm there all the time.
Long hours, days.
I was there basically 10 a.m. until about midnight most days. And so...
At 22 as well.
At 22. At this point, I'm 23. I'm maturing. But,
to be fair, though, mate, you've matured a lot.
Oh, my God. Oh, God. I was just... it's quite sad when you think back. You think, my God, I could have been having, just messing about. But actually, you learn this tremendous amounts, at that point, I met my now wife, which is a whole hilarious story. And she
was your waitress?
No. Well, no. We're not going to talk about the waitresses.
Fucking brilliant.
Unless you can block this from my life. But and I'm there, and my wife wife's a dentist, so she's very 9 to 5, and was working like 4 days a week or whatever. And I would see her on a Monday night and fall asleep, basically. And I was like, this is bad. We then went on this trip to Berlin, and we never speak about it. This is the first time I'm talking about it since then. And I literally just slept this whole weekend. She was like, what the hell's your problem? I was like, I haven't slept in 3 years. And I came back and I was like, I need to do something differently. I was like, this isn't right. I'm working like, a trader, and I'm certainly not earning like a trader. And she's like, we're in our favourite little cafe, and on a Monday afternoon, and she's like, have you thought about domiciliary care? I was like, what the hell is that? Domiciliary. I was like, what does that word even mean? And the next thing I know, I'm speaking to all the different franchisors around the country, buy a franchise, and I'm like literally I bought a franchise that was in Oxford. Yeah. I live in Buckinghamshire at this point, and my restaurant is in Richmond. So I'm doing 800 miles, 95 hours, including the travel. Like 9 a.m. in Oxford, right, which is an hour's journey from home. 3 hours at peak traffic, from there to Richmond, working there until about 1 o'clock in the morning. Then on the phone to my wife now, who's my then girlfriend, kind of keeping that going until like 3 a.m. And then up 6 a.m. trying to hit the gym, thinking, right, okay, because I was like really into that. I was like, God, literally for about 2 years, I slept for 3 hours a night, like just consistently.
Fuck me, mate. No wonder you got such a good work ethic.
I was like, but working dom care after a restaurant, so I was like, this is easy. I get to sit down. I
don't have to speak to her now. I can just tap away on the keyboard.
Just smash my keyboard up all day. But yeah, and then when that took off, I then sold my restaurant, and it was but I realized really early on that franchising just wasn't right. I sort of.
I'm sorry, but like, so you sold the business, 2 businesses in your 20s.
Yeah, like pre-25, basically. I think it was.
Do you understand how much how adult that is? Like, it's a massive thing, isn't it, mate?
For me, I was just getting through it.
Did you just do it on your seam of your own pants? You just figure it out and just get it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, basically, with the restaurant, certainly. I mean, what I was quite good at, which I realise now, was I was good at copying people and asking questions and then saying and listening to the answers and saying, right, okay, because I needed it, right?
Yeah.
I needed to hear the answers. Say, well, just tell me how to do it. I wasn't like, privately educated or any of that kind of stuff. And so my contacts list was like this. And so I was like, right, okay, just tell me what to do and I'll freaking go and do it. And I'll try it. And if it cocks up, I'll just try it again in a different way.
Where have you got that appetite from?
I mean, again, I suppose my parents probably, the certainly.
Have you got like a big friendship circle of friends who are like entrepreneurs, or have you just?
All my mates are professionals or in marketing and all that kind of stuff.
So you just your own grunt.
Oh, they thought I was bonkers.
I think you're bonkers, but I like it. I fucking love it.
It's like Italian restaurant. I was like, one of my mates, she was like, the only Italian pastas you've had have had Indian curry sauce. What the hell do you know about Italian restaurants? I was like, how hard could it be? But yeah, I mean, it was I sort of think back at it now, and it's been just 10 years and probably about that many different incarnations in businesses, I think. I've sort of like dabbled in restaurants in like 2 or 3 different types of that, and then sort of got into the home care bit, and then just realised that was, for me then, I was 26 when I bought the franchise.
Fucking hell, man. Well done.
And I was just like, right, this is it. This is what my 20
that
years
school
is.
Of business that you've been to, mate, you can't buy that.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, like, I've got to say, and I'd probably never really think about it that way, but I was talking to my nephew recently about doing an MBA or something. I was like, you need to do something, right? Worried that he's going to have to hustle hard. And I was like, but actually, I was just thinking about the value you get from just doing stuff is just bonkers. That is it.
Just throwing yourself into it,
just getting into it. And also the fear of failure, and the fear of failure being that you've got loans to pay and all that kind of stuff. That will just keep you working. basically, right? You know, and that will just keep you driving. And then, whereas now it's very different. Now it's like, you know, there's a bigger mission, and I'm like, okay, I need to fix the way home care franchising looks in the UK, and I need to just help entrepreneurs alongside helping the carers and clients. And you've got all these different stakeholders now. But like when I bought that franchise, you know, this is back in 2012. So literally, you know, I'm sort of sitting there thinking, this is it. You know, this is not the McDonald's that I thought it was going to be, right? And that wasn't, you know, the brand. It's just home care in UK, which historically has been sold to RMs, care managers, care workers, and so on. It was all very paper based and so on. You know, you couldn't have a life in the same way with it. Whereas I was like, okay, it just needs changing. It needs flipping on its head. It needs proper systemization. You need to be automated. We need to be paperless. We need to like get tech savvy. We need to get interesting with the social media and all that. You know, it just needs to be different. Basically, it needs to be brought into the 21st century like quickly.
Yeah.
So,
mate, I'm going to let you go into that, but I'm not going to let you go past some of this stuff because I feel like if you were going to explain to someone in their 20s how they're going to cope with being in business, what would you say to them? How did you cope? Who did you have? What did you do? How did you get yourself off the ground? How did you get up every morning? What did you do?
You know, I suppose I'm very insular as a person, actually. And so I sort of deal with all of my stuff, and I read a lot, business books and so on. And so I think I was 11 years old. My dad gave me this book called The Power of the Subconscious Mind, which probably changed my life, actually. I probably should tell him that. You know, and it just got me thinking about positive thinking, positive mental attitude. So at 11 years old, I'm thinking, well, actually, I can fix everything if I just think about it, you know. And so that got me into a lot of reading and learning. But I'm much better at it now than I was then. You know, if I had a problem, I'd just work harder. You know, just carry on harder. You know, if this isn't doing so well, let's open up another unit and just work harder at both of them. You know, I can split my time, and you know, this 3 hours of sleep is a waste. You know, and you know, it was like very kind of like just keep driving. So I suppose, you know, what I would say to somebody in their 20s is be open to learning, get a mentor, you know. And the first time I ever got anyone to do any mentorship, I was probably about 27, 28, and running my dom care business. And it was probably the biggest thing that helped me kind of develop. So I think mentorship, reading, you know, just surrounding yourself with like-minded people, you know, like yourself, actually. I mean, you and I pick up the phone to each other and say, shit, you know, but you need that, you know. And I think the motivation piece for me really came from within. You know, I used to be a competitive weightlifter and all this kind of stuff as a kid, and so you just
Do you think exercise has helped you, Amrit? Do you think
massively.
You made a lot of peace in the gym?
Yeah, totally. I mean, you can get the frustration out, but also you're self-motivated, right? Because you've got to wake up, you know, 6 a.m., hit the gym, boom, boom, you know, do that extra rep, throw that extra set in the mix. It's all of that stuff, right? Yeah. And I think, so being self-motivated, it's a personality trait, but I think you can learn it as well.
It's interesting, isn't it? I can't decide. You probably have made the decision, but I can't decide if people are self-motivated or not. Yeah. Like some people, like I feel like I pour energy into them, and just to get them to think slightly differently, like I do. And I fundamentally sometimes think it's in their DNA. They've been brought up that way. And I don't know if I reckon you are like me. You'll give it everything you possibly can and more. Yeah. I'd rob a bank with you. I trust you. You think cleverly. And that's a big statement. My dad used to say it all the time. Is who you'd rob a bank with. Think about robbing a bank, mate. It's difficult, isn't it? You have to use all your key skills that me and you've got to rob that bank cleverly and get away with it. And it's them type of people that I look for. But when some people, you just pour so much energy and effort in just to think that extra 10%, and they just don't. And I don't know if you're fundamentally just born with it. I think so many things are there, right? You know, you've got, are you born with it? But then all of the stuff that you're born around as well, you know, and how you're brought up, and also what your needs and wants are, you know, and that need thing is just really important, I think, you know. And it's so I you know, as I said, I kind of, where I grew up,
I was really clear as to what I didn't want.
Yeah.
And I was like, no one is going to give that to me.
My dad used to say the fear of poverty. Like the fear of poverty was stricken within him.
Yeah.
And then I've got a different one because I wasn't born in poverty. I was born in a really nice house and I went to a private school.
Yeah.
It didn't last at the private school, but that's a different story. But I have a fear of failure. I don't want to fail at all at anything, and I will push through. Now, I fail at lots of things, but I learn a lesson from them. And I think that's... But I don't know, like... It's just in you, isn't it? Like
absolutely.
Like I don't know how to describe it.
But it's that discipline, really, is what it comes down to, right?
But it's not always like it's not a boastful thing. Yeah. Sometimes it's
no.
It's almost like a bad thing. Sometimes
it's like a lion that's chained to your ankle. You know, you can't not do it. And I often have this conversation with my wife, and she's like, "Oh, just don't go." And I was like, that's just not even an option.
Ridiculous.
To come here to this morning, I set off like I had to start planning this at 2 p.m. yesterday, and but you have to just I turn up. That's what I do. It's like the world will stop spinning if I don't turn up. This and it's that mindset that you have to.
But you don't really think about the mindset. No, it's there.
It's there. But the annoying thing is that sometimes you don't want to go. Yeah. But you go, right?
You torture yourself.
You do it because it's there, right? But then I think often with business leaders or leaders in general, you've got that, right? Yeah. You've got some, I've got some wonderful people that work with me, for me, but the difference is that I will do it regardless of what, and that's what, and the same with you, right?
Regardless.
And, regardless of what happens, if everything just burns down around you, you will be standing there carrying on working. Yeah. And that is the difference right there, because that's that discipline, that self-motivation, that thing. You just have to do it, right?
Yeah. It's interesting. Sorry, I just went off on a tangent there, mate. I'd like to creep into them things and like what bit gets people fired up, and then like how does that cope around it? Like it's like also your missus as well. Like how does she cope with it, and how do you cope with that relationship, and then the kids involved? It's like it's so. I always get onto this topic because it's fucking in my head all the time. Is like, am I inspirational or am I not around enough? And I truly do believe I'm inspirational. And I think you've just painted the same picture. I going to my mum and dad's warehouses, pushing trolleys around, and then working in selling the, getting involved with franchises. I remember specifically in my teens going to shut a franchisee down of one of my mums.
Nice. Well, not nice, but
They were selling sport. It was a sportswear franchise. They had warehouses and they used to buy all the N-line products. And so the franchisees bought them from us, and we used to buy thousands of them to get them at a decent price and then sell them to franchisees. And it would be like a membership. So you'd sign up to a membership as a customer and you get it at a trade price. So a bit like, is it Matalan that used? Yeah, it's a bit like that. And then we found out one of the franchisees was buying them elsewhere and then putting them in there. So me and Mum walked in as customers when he wasn't there, bought all the stock that wasn't from us, and bought it all and got a receipt right in front of the guy. And then Mum went, I've just bought 300 quid worth of stuff that isn't come through us. Jeez. You in breach your franchise agreement.
Your mum's an OG.
But I remember that. I must have been 13 years old.
But that is it. That's how you learn, right?
Yeah.
You're just around it. It's life. It's normal. There is no other way. You know? It's.
But I love what it's taught me now, where people are like, oh, you need to pause, you need to break. I'm like, I do, but I really fundamentally love what I do. Yeah. So it isn't that bad.
No.
It isn't that bad if I don't have an attack. Like at the minute, I'm probably overwhelmed at the minute, but it's only because I've got this, I wanted to sell these franchises and do this last bit of work, but I'll go on holiday when I feel like I really, really want to go on holiday. Last time I went on holiday, which wasn't so long ago, probably about 2 months ago, the whole holiday I was on the phone. I didn't want to be there. Yeah. I was too...
You're not invested in that, you're invested in this.
Yeah,
you just
I was
need
like,
the right timing,
you're tearing me away from something that I've got an appetite for right now.
Yeah.
Now, some people say that's negative and you've got to have a break, and I get that, but they're not me.
Yeah.
And they weren't brought up like me, and they haven't done the journey I've done, and they might need a break, but I fucking definitely don't. Do you get what I mean? You can do your thing, and you've got to paint that picture, and I get it, and some would say this is a toxic conversation of mine, but they are not me.
I think this is it. You've got to know yourself, right? And everyone's got that different barrier. And I think there's when if I had no one else, if I didn't have my daughters and my wife and whatever, I would just be working, weekends, 19-hour days. I'd just carry on because I love it. Much like self. Like for me, that is a huge passion of mine. I'm really happy to just be working, and I love it. Yeah. But actually, the nice thing about having a family is it forces you to pause and stop and say, right, okay, well, what about this?
But it brings another journey that you've got to go on. And Ruth talked about this last week, was learning to be present around your kids.
Totally, yeah.
And that's a skill you have to learn.
Yeah.
If you've got an appetite like us and like Ruth does, to be successful in what you're doing, you have to be completely obsessed by it. But then you've got to pause that obsession to be around your kids and your wife.
One of the things that I have done recently, I literally wrote this kind of job description for being a dad. But writing it just kind of lets you off on some guilt that you have as well, because you realise, well, actually, I'm doing all of that, and that's okay. And it's okay to have some really shit days as well, and where you're sort of not okay and you're not present, whatever, because they're the odd days. The majority of the time, and I'm sure this is the same for your kids, they feel like they are the priority.
Yeah,
right?
they do.
They don't think that, it's Tezlom or Walfinch or whatever. They think that they are the priority.
Every morning I get downstairs, we have breakfast in bed. So every single morning we have shreddies in bed with the kids. So I never miss that every single morning. Make coffees, we have breakfast together. I'll go and get ready, the kids have showers the whole morning, and then the minute both of them at school, so they go to school. But I feel like I do that bit, I tick that box, but it's just sometimes it's the evenings and the weekends where I've got a little bit of a phone call or a chant, something's going on. But I fundamentally think the same as you is we'll go for a walk in the woods, I'm present the whole time, my phone's in my pocket, I don't touch it. Sometimes I might get a phone call, deal with it, but I'm back to the kids straight away. But I also think that that's teaching my kids that's how...
And that's work-life integration.
Yeah.
Because it's not work-life balance, it's work-life integration. Because those two things mean that you can be around more than a lot of other dads. Because, you could go and be there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon if you needed to. But, for me, I think so much of it comes down to the rituals, like you've said. So, I've got a almost 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and even the 2-year-olds there on the coffee machine. And that's daddy's cup and that's mummy's cup. And it's all part of the rituals, because I think that's life. It's all little sort of rituals, really. And so, often I will leave my phone. So I'll leave it upstairs when I'm with the kids downstairs, because otherwise I'm just forced to get into it. Or when we're away, a lot, I would just leave my phone behind, and I'll tell my PA or my someone in my team, like, okay, just if you really need to get hold of me, call my wife, basically, right? And they never would, because no one's called my wife, right? Right?
It'd have to be someone really.
It'd have to be super, super serious. And so the point is that and they probably wouldn't call me while I'm away, but I will call them.
100%.
Right?
I have to know what's going on.
And so if I leave my phone behind, I'm sort of forced to give myself talking to, and I think so often I just sort of leave my phone away, and certainly more and more when I'm with the kids, I just leave it away, and it's just not in the room, it's not in the kitchen when we're there, because otherwise you just say, we're just picking up on Instagram, what's that, who's on Ryan's podcast, and it's all that kind of stuff. And I think those little things really just do it, and just spending the time. For me, I think so much of it just comes down to that, and I'm pretty invested in the kids. I sort of try and be around for most school drop-offs, and try and be around for most school pickups. Actually, the way I kind of manage my diary is around my children, and I'll book meetings around my children. I'm not, ashamed to say it. I probably would have been 5 years ago, but I just think, well, screw it. That is really important, and this is really important. How do those two things marry up? And but I think it's really hard.
It's a practice.
And it's because then you'll sort of torment yourself about not being around your children enough, or you'll torment yourself around not being available for your team enough. But you're only human, and you've got to just let yourself off sometimes as well. But unfortunately, I'm pretty sure I probably speak for both of us. You'll never let yourself off. You'll just keep lashing yourself about one or the other thing. But then, isn't that what makes you just keep going? It's probably not that healthy, I suppose, actually saying it out loud. But actually, that is the reality of it, right?
Yeah, I think does it make me happy? Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it make me happy? I don't really get that down that I'm not always there physically for the kids, but I know that I will be around them and I can do the things that I really want to do when I'm with them. Yeah. And then I know they're really happy. They absolutely love school. They both love nursery. Like my missus has a salon, and when we had Jackson, she took a girl on to cover maternity, and she got fucking pregnant. So Charlene had to put we had to put Jackson in nursery at, I think, about 11 weeks old.
Gosh.
So he was really young. I think he was the youngest kid that they've ever had. And he was in full time. And Charlene, well, apart from Mondays, Charlene couldn't face it. She was so upset, and I was, to be honest with you. So I had to drop him off and pick him up every day. It was chaos, but. Some people would say, "Oh, you got to be around for your kids and bring them up and all that sort of stuff." And I don't know. The kids absolutely love nursery, and then we got to do what we did, and we were still available. Do you know, I feel like everyone's got their own tale to tell, haven't they?
This is it. There's no right or wrong. I think actually, children that go to university, nursery from a younger age are just better at speaking, socialising, all of that kind of stuff. So actually, it's kind of a bit of both. I mean, my wife also has her businesses, and so. I think that really helps as well. When your partner's involved in their business, they understand that it's not 9 to 5. That they understand that it's quite consuming.
You're both empathetic, aren't you, to each other?
Yeah. And actually, like, I've been with my wife now for quite a lot of years, and even the way we met was very kind of. She's like, "What the? This is unusual, and just how we. Come on, you're gonna tell me. So. It was all pre-Tinder and all of that. So thank God for that. But I wouldn't be selling any franchises after that. But sidled up to her in a bar and hi, how you doing? Did my piece, and she was just gorgeous. And I sort of told her this, and I'm there with a friend at my friend's birthday party, and she's like, "Look, what are you doing? Just come back here." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So wait until the end of the night, and we had this very kind of brief conversation. And she's like, "Oh, my name's this, and I'm a dentist, and I kind of work basically near where I used to live." But we met in town, and we were both in Buckinghamshire at the time. And so one of my mates. Don't ask about this. It's a very long story. But always just have a deck of cards with him. Right? Go with that wherever you want. And I said, "Look, give me the Ace of Hearts. I'm going to write my phone number on it and give it to her." And he said, "No, I'm not going to give you the Ace of Hearts." I was like, "Give me the Ace of Hearts. I'll get you a new deck of cards. Don't worry about it." So he gives me the Joker. I was like, "Well, this is the only paper that's around." So I'm like, there, I write my phone number. I give her my phone number. I say, "Hey, look, it'd be nice to speak." And I thought, well, I haven't spoken to her enough for me to ask for her number. Because she's definitely not going to give it, And I was like, okay, rapport building hadn't been done, If I learned anything from recruitment, it was,
Needs a bit more work.
It needs a bit more work. So I was like, here's my number. So I'm like there, just waiting by my phone for the next 2 weeks. I was like, this is not good, Literally 2 weeks go past, and I was like, okay, right, I need to take some action here. And so I was like, okay, what did she say her name was? Right, okay. So her name's Trishna, and I heard Krishna because it was very loud, and I'd never heard her name before. So I'm like calling up all of the dental practices in this area in Buckinghamshire, and there was like 60. Right, I'm like, yeah, can I speak to Krishna, please? And there's no one that works here with that name. Cool, next. Cool, next. Get to number 58, and this lady was like, "Oh yeah, cool. I'll Trishna's not here today," and I was like, "Cool, Krishna's not here today." So we're like thinking we're saying the same name, we're not. And she's like, "Yeah, no, she'll be here tomorrow." I was like, "Lovely. What time?" So like 20 minutes before her end of her day, I call again. Literally waited 24 hours, very patiently, phone her, and she's like, who is this? I was like, it's Amrit. You know, only first name, no reference. She's thinking it's some other dentist because, you know, Amrit. That's like my Amrit Dhaliwal is like John Smith, right? So she's like, okay, cool. Is this about referral for a patient? I was like, no, we met a couple of weeks ago. She's like, how did you get this number? And I sort of made a bit of a joke. She's like, I'm just about to finish work. Look, can I just give you my phone number and let's speak later? And I was like, yeah. I'm like, I've been waiting for 14 days for this. Get her phone number, and then you know, I call her again. You know, 3 hours later, waited until like post dinner time. I thought, this seems like a sensible time to speak to somebody. She doesn't pick up. I was like, oh my God. But she called back. We're on the phone for like 3 hours. And I was like, oh, cool. So let's like meet for a coffee. This has been great. And she's like, yeah, don't want to meet. I was like, what do you mean don't want to meet? She's like, no, just came out something heavy. Not interested in meeting. Let's just, you know. I was like, okay. So for 8 months, we're speaking basically every day, texting, messaging, calling, you know, sending like stuff to work and whatever. And she's 8 months
of graft.
Didn't meet me for 8 months.
Wow.
And then we eventually met, and then, you know, that was it. It was like getting into a relationship like 4 years in, because you just know each other so much at that point. Yeah. But what she understood from that point was, you know, I don't let it go, right? And so when I get involved in businesses and whatever, she's like, right, okay, he's just got to do it. You know, he can't. I just can't let it go, you know. And it's so even with like Walfinch and whatever, and you're just pounding away. And she's like, oh, do you want to take a bit of a breather here? I was like, got to do this, got to do that, got these things going on, and it's bigger than me, right? And that's the thing, it's bigger than me.
So did you meet at the same time you were doing Walfinch, or?
No, so I met before I bought my home care franchise as a franchisee, and it was her that suggested it.
Right.
And then after that, it was in end of 2012, beginning of 2013, that I thought, I need to build this up, sell it, and start my own franchising business. And so that was like 5 years of me kind of getting external support, building my home care business up, and saying, right, I'm gonna do this. This is my treasure chest. To then go and create, you know, my own home care business and do it the way I think it should be done. And here we go. You know, it's been bonkers basically. So,
why do you call it Walfinch?
So the first part of it comes from my surname, and the second part of it, Finch, with like the freedom of, you know, evolution and the bird and so on. And I thought it was quite like a nice thing. And I think kind of moving away from the use of the word care, I think, you know, because so many older people are not interested in care. You know, they want companionship, friends. They want to omit loneliness. They don't want care. You know, and it's that kind of the piece around that. So we had a branding agency that helped us with it, which you know, it was quite fun, kind of going through all the different versions of it and so on. But yeah, so and then here we go, you know, and here we are today. You know, it's but it's interesting what you said about kind of just getting onto social media, because I didn't used to really use social media at all, you know. I didn't even used to like stuff, you know, wouldn't really get onto it, you know. But then I kind of just realized that you've got to get your story out there, right? Yeah. And that's been quite interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. Social media is a tough one. I think you either love it or hate it.
Yeah.
And I think, again, I don't know if you can be taught it or pushed into it, because it doesn't come authentic.
Yeah. It's got to be real, you're right.
Yeah.
That rawness, you know.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like, that same tenacity you've got to have about creating a business, you've got to have it about your social media. Yeah. It's the power of brand.
Yeah.
It's the power of brand, a personal brand or the company brand, and it's when people feel like they want to be part of it, I think that's when they'll post. I think that's when it comes alive. Yeah. If they feel like they want to be part of it, they'll share it. Yeah. They'll post about it. They'll naturally do it. Yeah. And I think until they go, and I also think it's a maturity thing as well. I feel like a maturity in that role or that part of something, they have to learn that it's okay to share that they're happy in that role. They have to learn to be okay that they're happy to it's like an adult, not an adult thing, but it's a mature approach to social media. Yeah. Like people post about pictures of the dogs and holidays and stuff like that, and that's very nice. But that was Facebook 1990 something or other. Yeah. And that still kind of goes on. I get people use it for that, but it's much more of a powerful tool than that now. And I feel like if you're in a career and you're not using it, you're actually massively selling yourself, and you're probably not going to be that successful or as successful as you could be if you didn't use it.
It's that nth bit, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the nth bit. And it's the bit that, it's the showcase piece, or sharing the challenge as well at the same time. And I feel like people who don't use it, they're just missing out on it. And the maddest thing is their attitude towards it is they think they're winning at life by not using it. A lot of them have that attitude of like, oh, it's fucking bullshit. And unfortunately, they've not been able to let their ego down or do that learning piece that me and you have done, is that you can make an amazing relationships.
Yeah, so true.
Through social media.
Through social media, right?
I met Kay through social media. You meet people through social media that become your friends, and you learn from social media more than any book you will do. You can learn through watching videos and reading stuff, and then talking to people, going to seminars online. There's just much more than social media. It's a bit like, this isn't actually a phone.
Yeah.
It isn't a phone.
I mean,
it
that's
does
like
phone
the
calls.
Least useful thing on it in many ways.
The least useful thing is this. That, like, this is my bank. This is my business. My CRM system's on it. All my social media channels are on it. Every single one of my team's telephone numbers on it. Slack's on it, so I can see all the communication throughout the business. Multiple emails, so people saying, "Oh, I don't use social media," or it's not. It's a bit like saying, "I've decided not to accomplish everything."
Yeah, it's so true though, isn't it?
I mean, I've decided I'm not going to accomplish everything because I've decided not to use social media.
I went through years of basically not, and thinking, I can't be bothered with that. I don't have time for it. Whereas now I'm thinking, actually, it's part of my KPIs. It's just part of my working day, and it's and the difficult thing is actually just being very honest and real, because you're sharing so much, right? But I remember, actually, I must say, I don't know if I've ever said this to you, but I used to watch your stuff, before we'd even met. I was like, this guy's good. I was like, this is what it needs to look like. And it was very inspiring, I've got to say. It's really interested to say.
It's scary to put yourself out there, but once you start doing it and you get the feedback from see what happens is this sort of same old analogy is like, when you start posting on social media, you want your friends to support you, but they're not the ones that buy anything from you. And they're not the ones that you're trying to get, you learn stuff from people on the same journey as you. So as soon as you start posting on social media, the people that the stuff you post out, you get back the people you want to speak to, and that's where the real sort of interesting stuff comes through, because you actually realise it's a massive world out there. And I've made friends globally, people globally I speak to on social media, and have done on Zooms and telephone calls, and still do. And using that as a tool, I fundamentally do not understand people's attitudes towards it, and I'll never will. I understand that you go through bad mental health stages, you go through dark days, and you might step away from it. That's cool. You might go on holiday and step away from it, because me and you are a bit like, if I'm on it, I actually end up doing a bit of business sometimes.
Yeah, totally.
And I want to step away from doing that. So I get that. But fundamentally, saying to yourself, if you're in your teens, 20s, 40s, 30s, 60s now, and have a career, and you decide that you're not going to use it, you're fundamentally saying to yourself, I am not going to be as successful.
Totally. I mean, the number of people that I've been able to learn from, speak to because of it, or it introduces conversation. I was in the States at this International Franchise Association conference, and Sean Goldsmith just taps me on the back, and I turned around and I was like, hi. He's like, Amrit. I was like, yeah. And we had this great conversation, started speaking, whatever. He's like, yeah, I've been following you, whatever. I was like, that's so cool. I was like, but actually it meant that he felt comfortable to come up and have a conversation. I've learned loads in that conversation, and you've made a new friend and a new connection. I think the powerful thing about business in today's world, it's not like how our parents were doing it, 40 years ago. It's so open. People are willing to share. You could probably pick up the phone to 10 people right now and say, I've got this problem, how would you deal with it, right? And they'll be happy to do it because they know you as a personality, and that's so cool, And
if you share your personality across the channels, people then buy from you as a person because they see me as being transparent.
Yeah.
They see I've got integrity. They know I work hard. I'm passionate about what I do. It's because that's who I am. I don't, and you're the same as me. Meeting you in person to watching one of your videos is zero difference in person.
Yeah.
Because you've gotten past at the beginning, I was the same. You do
it's awkward,
the awkward professional thing. You have a script and you go through all that. And then after time, you start realising, that's not who I am. No. I'm going to do my own thing, and you start building. And then when someone meets you, they actually feel like they really know you. Yeah. And if you've seen their social media, you'll probably know a bit about them. But I think that's a really nice space to be.
It's very powerful, I think.
Massively powerful.
And it kind of goes beyond selling franchise and whatever, because I don't necessarily know how much it helps with that. And whatever, but what it does help with, I think, is learning from business people.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, you're putting stuff out there that somebody might be able to kind of say, right, that's helped me with my 1% today.
Giving back.
And that's it. You're passing back.
My mum says to me, like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? This room we rent basically for the podcast, bought thousands of pounds of stuff, and we always buy new bits. And I'm like, because it needs to be done, Mum.
Yeah.
And she's like, but where does it come on the bottom line? I'm like, it doesn't.
Yeah.
There's no direct correlation from this podcast to selling a franchise or one of my videos to selling a franchise. There isn't. Now, I do add people who are looking at franchises onto LinkedIn. I constantly post about stuff on that, and I do get people say to me, "Oh, watch one of your videos the other day," and that becomes part of their journey. And now we send videos to people who are looking at franchises to say, "This is what it looks like. This is one of the testimonials from a franchisee. This is one of the testimonials from a care assistant," because it becomes a tool. Then it's a marketing tool. It's also social media, but it's also a marketing tool.
Yeah, I mean, and also I've got to say,
I've seen some of yours. You've just done some more recent ones, haven't you? The really cool interviews. There's two girls.
Yes,
I could love that.
Yeah, I mean, but this is it. I think and it becomes a marketing tool, but it also tells people, the journey and all that. But I think so much of it, and I with you and I, I'm 36 and
41.
Yeah, and so we're a new generation of franchisors.
Yeah.
Right. We're born in a tech world.
Yeah.
And we're selling to people that are also born in a tech world, and we get it, right? And I think the difference actually is that the way that franchising used to be done and business used to be done, and it still is with a lot of bigger brands because of the sort of people that lead those, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just it will change, and we're able to say, well, we're going to just change it today, right now. And maybe some of the other brands will then say, well, okay, we're going to change this in 5 or 10 years' time. But the new generation of franchising is this. It is technology, it is automation. It's really kind of getting into fast. People and life and fast.
Fast.
And that's it. It's. The whole ethos of business and the reason people get involved in business, I think, has really changed in the last 10 years even. Yeah. And I think, there's and being that much younger really helps, I've got to say, because you're easier to just say, well, okay, I've not had 7 different business cycles. So what are you saying we should do it this way? Oh, cool, let's give it a bash. Oh, that works. Okay. I still say 10 years on that I'm not from the care industry. But actually I've been in it for a decade, but I still look at things saying, it shouldn't be done that way, that's shit, and let's just change it, and that's okay to do, right? And it's having that freshness of thinking, well, let's just flip it on its head.
Change, pivot, do this one different.
I've never been in franchising apart from being a former franchisee, which is actually in many ways more useful than having worked in franchising, because, I understand the emotional journey that the other guy's going on, and it's saying, well, okay, when we're speaking to franchisees within our own network, how are we doing it? Yeah. When we're implementing change, how are we doing it? Because I've run in their shoes, right? Yeah. And so I'm just looking at it from, okay, well, this is how it should be done. We've started a franchise advisory council, right? Yeah. And we've done that because it's just an added layer of communication.
Yeah.
You know, that we're really small to do that, quite frankly.
Yeah, you are.
But I just think, well, actually, I've been in their shoes, and so.
Could you give me an example without throwing any shade on anyone of like what you mean by being a franchisee and something being told to you? Like, could you give an example or not?
It's anything. You know, it's like, okay, you might change the color of the logo, and you think, well, this is great. You know, this looks really cool. It looks really fresh, and you know, I've got it in 4 different colors, and this is amazing. But actually, you know, a franchisee's thinking, well, hold on a second. You know, I've got all my marketing material over here. Also, I like the old color, so piss off, you know. Yeah. And you're just saying to them, well, hey, this is what we're doing, right? Yeah. But as a franchisee, I want to feel like actually I'm part of the family. I own it as well. Yeah. What my thoughts, and yes, you can't get 100 people's opinions on it, and I get that. But that is where you get the advisory council that really helps, and you can actually start saying, well, okay, you know, petition the network, and then I'm talking to 4 different people or whatever. We're making decisions together, but in a sensible way. Yeah. Well, certainly everyone's got a voice in it. I think for me, I think so much of it is that, you know, I think because I've also always been a leader that has led from within the trenches, you know, that is the difference, basically. So I don't know if that kind of answers your question, but I think really kind of just getting into their mind and thinking, well, what is the journey I want to be on? You know, whether that is the welcome sign when they rock up to the sandwiches, or whether that's 4 years on saying, well, okay, you know, we're changing this word.
We've just changed our CRM for the second time.
Or that, you know, that's
I got 3 franchisees. One that had been 10 years old, one that was 6 years old, and one that was 3 months old. Yeah. And got all 3 of them on it. And it was interesting to see the sort of negativity at the beginning. Yeah. And then the embracement. It was an hour and a half Zoom call. Yeah. And then, you know, everyone embraced it. It was just an interesting thing where. But I think sometimes because as a franchisee, or you're so far in front sometimes, and you go on that journey, then you're trying to deliver it to someone who's got to go on that journey first, mentally. Mentally. And
that's the thing that a lot of franchisors don't do. Like, they don't take the time to just explain the change management. I think, you know, whether that is as small as, look, we're not going to use this sort of glass, we're now going to use, you know, a sort of taller glass, or whatever it is, you know, or to the big stuff, the CRMs and so on. I think taking the time to explain it, having the right people around to explain that. I think, you know, having been a franchisee, when you just have orders that are delivered down to you, it just, you know, it feels very archaic. You know, it's just not. It's not how people want to do business anymore. You know, it's not 1980. You know, we are very kind of, it's all linear. You know, now I think so much of organizations feel like that rather than that now, and it's about sort of saying, well, okay, how do I lead from within that, and all of the different personalities that come into that.
Again, it's that breaking down the ego in it, because you could be wrong. Yeah, you could be wrong.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, sometimes it's frustrating because you know you've got to pause and have a little bit of patience so everyone else gets on board at the same time, but it's a much easier win. Yeah. And sometimes they come up with some better ideas and things you didn't think of.
Which is brutal as well, because you just want to kind of, I'm very much about action. Let's just do it. Yeah. And then if it's not okay, well, we'll fix that along the way, but it will be okay. At the end, in a 5-year period, we'll be way ahead if we just do it now. Or we can wait 18 months and talk about it, look at it, and you know map it differently. And so, you know, I'm very much about, let's just take the action and let's put all of the kind of facilities in to make sure that all of the different eventualities are dealt with. You know, and that's it. Whether that's the right way or the wrong way, I don't know. But I think the entrepreneur within me is just saying, right, okay, let's start running that way, and we'll probably get to London at some point. You know,
it's so true. Can I just skew the conversation a little bit? Yeah. There's 2 things I want to ask you. I'm going to get some water. Just keep recording. I don't care. He's
I'll get super zoom on Amrit.
Yeah, he's fine. He's public speaking.
Yeah.
I know you're good at public speaking.
Yeah.
How did you get good at it?
That's a really good question. And thank you for saying I'm good at it. You know, because you always sort of think.
Well, you're very eloquent, aren't you? So I find you quite educated, and then so you've got some. See, I'm not, but I'm trying my fucking hardest to get my point across without using big words because I don't know more.
Yeah.
But I just wondered how, because I found it very scary, and I'm getting better at it, but I'm fucking way away.
Yeah.
But it's something I actually want to do in my career. Like, I actually want to get into that space at some point.
I think you'd be brilliant at it, by the way.
I appreciate that. But I just wanted to know how you got there.
I think, again, it's all about a need, you know, and I feel... So, and just to sort of say, I never think I'm that good at it. You know, I sort of hear myself back and think, oh, I ummed too much in that or something. And you have those toe curling, you know, I was listening to a podcast I was on recently. It's, oh my God, I could literally count the number of ums I said in that, you know, and I'm literally sitting here today thinking, don't say don't say you know. And it's because it's all of that. But I don't necessarily know if anyone else would notice it, but I notice it because...
You pull yourself to pieces.
Absolutely. So I think doing it a lot helps, because actually the first thing is pulling the plaster off, saying, well, okay, if I'm crap, I'm crap, and that's okay. I'm just going to carry on doing it. Same with social media, right? You're just going to just keep on doing it.
Okay, got it.
And so once you've done 10 different public speaking events, first of all, you know, you're just better at it than when you were 10 speakers, 10 shows ago, right? Yeah. And the second thing is, I think, listening to other people, because actually, you know, certainly for me, I learn a lot, you know.
The power of pause is one I've learned.
Exactly.
It's a big one, that, isn't it?
You know, and just hearing people speak and think, oh, actually, that's interesting, or the way he delivered that was pretty good, and so on. And I think the other thing, the big thing for me is just structuring out what you're going to say, because... probably the same as yourself. I could just carry on. We can do this podcast until tomorrow. So I'm game. I've got an overnight bag. Just structure it and just have the 3 salient points. So this is it, and everything else is around that. And actually, then you just get better at doing that. I think, you know, and it's hard. But I think if you remove the ego bit of thinking, well, what do I look like here? Yeah. And after that, nobody cares, right? Yeah. Because you're up there and the audience is not. And so, you know, good on you for trying, basically. You've taken time out of your day, probably for free, to go up and do something, to deliver some knowledge that somebody out there is going to walk away from. I mean, I've been in those audiences and thinking, I'm going to go and do that tomorrow.
I have.
In fact, I've done public speaking events where the audience has said something, and I'm thinking, shit, we need to do that. You know, you learn. You know,
100%. I was at a BFA event the other day, and I was like, fuck me, my phone wouldn't. I couldn't type fast enough in my phone to get it over to the team. Like, we are fucking doing this now.
Yeah. You know, and that's it. You know, I think you just need to. It's all ego at the door, right? And it's really hard. But
this is going to creep into my next one, and it might be a bit of a difficult or dark or deep conversation. Well, it might not be. I feel like you're fairly confident. He says, what do you think you're bad at? What do you always work on? What's the thing that you fuck up on? What do you think you're learning on all the time, mate?
So much, you know. I mean, I always sort of look at myself and like, what are you good at? For goodness sakes, Amrit, for goodness, do something right for a change. I mean, so we could just, you know, start from the top.
I'm the same. He's the same.
Where's that whip? You know?
my biggest one at the minute, mate, and I've got another coaching session this morning, is communication. So I'm like in dreamland all the time. Yeah. This is what we're doing next. This is how we're doing. And then I'm like crucifying the whole team of like, why the fuck do you not know? And I'm terrible at it. And I'm learning to communicate better, and then also learn that when I'm telling that person, they don't think like me, and I've got to then let them get on speed. And I'm just wondering, is there something that you've got going on at the minute?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably 2 or 3 different things, I suppose, right? Having never worked in a big organization, there you go. And so
give yourself time to think.
So having never worked in a big organization, the one of the key things that I've worked on over the last 5 years is structure, and saying, well, okay, this is how an organization needs to look. This is the best way of doing it. And that's a good and a bad thing. The bad thing is that I've never done it before. I've never worked in it before. And so you're thinking, well, okay, I'm just now making it up. The great thing is that I'm making it up in the way it needs to be done. And I'm getting external support, and I'm getting coaching and books and all of that saying, that is how we should do it. That is how we should run a leadership meeting. Not because I've done it for 30 years in a different way, and so you just rock up and say, well, that is how we're doing it, because I've just been, shown how to do that way for 30 years. And so it's really useful, but quite painful at the same time. And so I'm really constantly trying to learn. And I think within that comes that leadership bit, much like what you're saying. I've had to work really hard on listening to my team and hearing what they've got to say, because as an entrepreneur you think, well, this is what we're going to do, so let's just all just do it, But actually, when you've got like a team that really gets it, wants it,
better than you at loads of other stuff,
at loads of stuff, you got to listen to them. And sometimes it's saying, actually, I don't really want to do it that way, but so
sometimes do you make decisions based on like your anger, and you go, I'm gonna fucking, and after you speak to someone, they go, and I hate them for 10 minutes because they're right.
Yeah. And I've so over the last sort of 10 years, probably, I've really thought about that, and certainly over the last 5, I've really drilled in on that.
Yeah.
Listening to what other people have to say and taking it on board and thinking about it. So one of the things I've started doing is saying, right, okay, well, we're not going to conclude this here. Give me 24 hours. I'm going to sleep on this.
I sleep test. I call it all the time.
You sleep test it.
100%.
And because and actually, then sounding out. So I speak to my wife a lot, and she's not involved in the business.
Unemotional.
Exactly. And so, and then also I've got an advisor, Simon, actually, I think, and so, it's really great to just be able to pick up the phone, because he's also quite unemotional like that, and saying, well, okay, well, there's this or there's that, this will happen or that will happen. What do you want? And so I think actually it's really listening to people and saying, well, okay, that might not have been the way. If I was leading on that project over there, I wouldn't do it that way. But I'm not leading on that. So either I lead on that, or I, shut the, and let them crack on with it. And that's it. And I think actually it's then sort of having the milestones and so on. There was this great guy called Mark Fritz. He came along to one of our conferences. I did some coaching with him, all leadership stuff. And he's really smart. And he spoke about NIFO, nose in, fingers out. And so it's really saying, okay, this is what your team's up to. I'm going to put my nose in, which is me sort of seeing how we're going on certain milestones, what the project timeline is and so on, but I'm going to keep my fingers out of it. And so I'm going to let them carry on. I'm going to make my people feel taller. I've probably done 5 years of solid work on that. It's something that I still always sort of lament over, because it's something that I haven't experienced. I don't think I'm there yet. And hopefully I'll never think I'm there, because I think then you're screwed. But it's all of that John Maxwell, I don't know if you've read 5 Levels of Leadership, I think you'd really like it. And it breaks it down into saying, well, this is it. When you're that entry-level leader thinking, well, okay, I've got the title, therefore you listen to me, or you do the stuff that you do, and I know you do it, okay, well, you've got this issue with your washing machine or your kid's school or whatever it is, I'm going to get right behind you. And that is that kind of premium, pinnacle level of leadership. And
I look at it like, if they can't solve that problem, which is a big problem in their life right now, they're not going to deliver what I need. So giving them half a day paid to just go and fucking solve that issue, or fuck up, like there was an issue, like Gemma the other day, she cleared out a cupboard and put all her shoes on her dad's bed. Her dad was on holiday. And then she got the text message, she got the dates wrong, and her dad was on his way home. And it's like, the last thing you want to do when you get from holiday is not be able to get in bed or just put your stuff in the room. She's like, oh my God, I'm fretting. And I was like, just go home and get your stuff. And she's like, really? I was like, you take you 2 hours. Like,
just do it,
Just go and sort it.
Or you're going to ruin the whole day thinking about it.
And your dad's going to be pissed off when he gets back from his holiday.
And then you're going to be wound up tomorrow as well.
Like you can answer your phone while you're driving, can't you? And she's like, I said, right, we'll do something. Let's just go and solve it. It's them little things that I like about leadership in there.
And that's it. So for me, that's a bit that I found the hardest, because actually it's taking other people's opinions into consideration. And as your organisation grows, you have to do it. Because also so much of my mindset is around that succession planning bit of saying, well, if all roads lead to Amrit, that's all just bottleneck.
Well, you can't sell the business.
You can't.
You can never move on or do different things. Or
well, you can't even grow your business.
Yeah, you can't. You're suffocated by you all the time. It's a terrible place.
Totally. And so you see so many organizations like that where there's this the big boss man, and he's just there, or she's just there, but it's all ego because they don't want to devolve any of it. Yeah. And I really have a fear of being that, and so you kind of try and learn so much. But I think the big thing that I'm constantly working on is leadership skill, best practice on how to run meetings, because those two things for me, is that a waste of everybody's time? Yeah. Have we got anything out of it? Yeah. And that leadership bit, it's hard because so many, I won't go into it, but I recently was thrown into the mix with some serious stuff, and you think, my God, I've not had to deal with this before, and you're learning again.
Yeah, pull yourself to pieces.
Yeah,
it's difficult, isn't it, mate? I'm sorry I asked you that question, but I feel like if people are running a business and they're watching a podcast, and I'll use this analogy again. I use it all the time. Is if you're on a boat, in the middle of the night, it's fucking freezing cold. You smash into a big rock. You're in the water on a piece of wood, floating about. It's pretty fucking bad, isn't it? Yeah. But if you had someone else with you doing it, it's not as bad.
Yeah.
I feel like if you're watching a podcast in a franchise, or you're a leader in a business, and you knew that me and you are going through constant things right now, today, when we leave this podcast tomorrow, we're beating ourselves up, pulling ourselves to pieces, doing it wrong, behaving incorrectly, but then trying to be aware and fix it. Yeah.
And that's it.
Literally, that's it, isn't it?
I mean, that is literally it. Right there is a definition of it all. Running a business, leadership, everything. It's just constantly trying, constantly doing it. And actually that's the same for parenting. That's the same for running a startup, running a massive thing. You just got to keep trying. I think for me, I was saying earlier, I've got nephews and 21 and 18, and I look at them and I said this to them recently. I was like, just keep trying to do stuff. Yeah. Whatever it is that you're interested in, just keep trying. Because if you keep trying, something somewhere is going to make sense to you. It's going to make sense in the universe, and you'll fit in. Yeah. But if you don't try, you're not in it. No. That's it. Yeah. With franchising, I remember my super supportive wife, she is. But she was like, before I sold my first franchise, she was like, so who's going to buy this thing? I was like, that's a very good question. That's a very.
I'll let you know.
I thought, well, we're going to find out at the same time. She was like, because you're onto a good thing here with this Dom Care agency that you're about to sell, and we're sort of working kind of part time, or we're away a lot and whatever. So you're going to sell that and just going to go and do franchising business, and you're not involved in franchising. I was like, yeah. Yeah, that's it. It needs fixing. I was like, it's a problem. I got to do it. And off you go, and you just think, right, okay, someone's going to take it, because you just believe. Yeah. And I think so much of entrepreneurship is that inner belief,
self-belief.
Oh, because that's all you've got.
Yeah, mate. I broke down in the car the other day with Gemma. It was a pretty bad thing. I told her something and asked her to do something, and then afterwards I fucking really messed up, and I was literally crying in the car. And but then afterwards I was like, I fucking still believe in myself. I'm still gonna fucking do this. I'm gonna get through today. I'm just gonna fucking push. We went and did a load of business meetings, and I got through the day and apologised, and we worked through it. We talked it out, and we came to a sort of agreement, and it was cool. But it's that bit of work that never leaves me. I don't know what the fuck it is. I kind of wish it wasn't there sometimes, but it is there. Yeah. Absolute self-belief. There's absolutely no... You will have to fucking shoot me to stop me. I will have to die.
But that is why you do what you do. Yeah. And if you didn't have that, you wouldn't be doing this. Yeah. That is for sure. Yeah. Right? Without that sort of just infinite self-belief... Yeah. You just can't do it. Yeah.
But it's also that self-belief makes you make the decisions you make sometimes. You will be exactly the same. Sometimes I'm like, sat in the car, thinking, what the fuck am I going to do? And I just go, I'm just going to do this. Yeah. I have no education behind it. Yeah. I have no structure to my decision. I've not asked anyone. I've just gone with my gut feeling. Can I afford it? Will it work? Fuck it, let's do it.
But the fuck it test that many business schools talk about, with this coupled with self-belief means that you just go and make it work, right? Yeah. Because you think, well, I'm not going to let it fail, so I'm just going to make it work. So there you go. I mean, that was basically how I started franchising. I'm like, fuck it, I could do this. Well, I'm just going to go off and do it. I mean, literally every single business, my deli, Italian restaurant, tea room, dom care agency, franchisee, franchise, all was like, fuck it, I could do that. My brother-in-law, who's like, he's sort of a chartered accountant, used to work in the city, now runs family businesses and so on, but very kind of program guy. And it was really funny when I was speaking to him, because he was like, yeah, and here are the numbers, and Lang Busen said this and so on. I was like, yeah, but also fuck it, I think I could just hourly rate looks all right, bang out that and it'll be all right.
So when you're, I'll try, I will line this podcast up at some point, because I fucking love this podcast. But do you know when you awarding franchises or selling franchises, what the fuck you want to call it? You do all the business plan, you have the meetings, you have the lunches, you get to know them, you do all the bits and pieces, but there has to still be a fuck it from them, doesn't there?
There has to be.
There still has to be a fuck it from them. And that's the hardest bit, isn't it? Because you're doing the business plan, you're nailing it down for them, and they still have to do the fuck it.
They've got to do the work.
Yeah, they've got to jump that mystery land of, I don't know if this is going to work. And what they want is you to go, here's a business plan, this is exactly what's going to happen. And what the problem is you get the business plan, fucking launch out the window the minute it starts.
Yeah. I've gone the other way now. So within the kind of recruitment process, I very much position ourselves as coaches, and I say we do nothing for you. It's all with you, or we'll teach you and so on, but we do nothing for you. So if you don't want to go out there and do the work, this isn't for you. And I've just started saying no to a lot of people, because and the thing that you're talking about, the gut feeling, I mean, that's a real thing, right? And you start honing that in. You can smell it and saying, these guys are not for us. And a lot of those guys have then gone off and bought other franchises, either within the industry or elsewhere and so on. And that's okay, because actually it might work for them there, but it won't work for them here, because this is who we want. We want someone that can fit the family, right? Mm-hmm. And it's the same for yourself, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly the same.
If they're not interested in doing the work, then you may as well just open up a location of your own.
Yeah, I might as well do it myself. Just bang an advert and open them up.
And that's it. So it all comes back down to self-discipline, having that kind of inner belief and doing the work. And it's, yes, our job as franchisors is to coach them, is
mentor
to
them, be there.
Mentor people.
Yeah, we get to know them, don't we? It's not heartless, is it?
No.
We're fully in there, I'm fully invested.
And sometimes it's just listening to them crying on the phone as well, and that's okay, right? Yeah. But actually, it
goes both ways sometimes.
Totally.
It goes both ways.
But you've got to want to do the work. And if I look at my best franchisees, they all do the work. They are hardworking, self-disciplined people that are just, they're great. They're doing the work. And that's it. They're not doing anything magical. They're just doing the work. And they're good at following the system. I think that's the other big thing that I've learned is, if somebody's not willing to follow the system, and I know you and I have spoken about this, they're, again, not right for the brand. It all comes back down to that. You can't go to McDonald's and say, actually, I'm gonna go to Waitrose and get a brioche bun, and we're gonna put the burgers in that because I quite like those. That's no longer a Big Mac, right? And that's it.
Yeah, it's so true, man. I think I'm gonna end the podcast there. I feel like I've got everything out of you that I wanted to. I was so selfish with some of them questions, but I feel like we're relatively the same age, got kids, both married, relatively similar sized businesses. I feel like I just wanted to be a bit selfish in some of the questions.
No, cool.
I'm so sorry about that, mate, but it's. I think it's important for people to see that. I'll say it again. It's a big statement. The franchise industry in the UK fundamentally needs people like you who have honest conversations with other professionals in the industry, so we can all get through.
Yeah.
It needs it. It needs people like me and you being brave, taking selfies outside franchise offices. Yeah. Doing face-to-cam videos for LinkedIn, Instagram, and sharing our journey.
The game needs to change, right?
Yeah, so we just need to keep pushing it. I feel like we'll have that self-belief and keep doing it.
Absolutely.
But that's it, mate. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate you coming all this way. Oh, and I will see you at the expo. It's your first expo,
Yes,
isn't it?
yeah. First expo. Looking
Are you
forward
talking
to
at the
that.
expo?
I've got 2 talking slots. I think they're both on the Friday, if I'm not wrong. So, what about yourself? Are you?
I've gotten to, yeah.
Nice, great.
Yeah, mine's about brand.
Yeah.
Gibbering on about brand. I always talk about it.
No, very cool. I'll come along to it.
No, don't. All right, mate. Thank you.
G1. Right?
That's it. We're
No,
done.
thanks for having me.
Cheers.